All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. Tony Rocco with the division. We are in our fourth OSSC committee meeting. This is the back-to-back week, and then hopefully, based on the committee's input from yesterday, we will be able to reschedule the next meeting, which was originally scheduled for the 3rd, right after the holiday. So I don't think that gives even our team enough time to kind of turn things around and get docs ready, uploaded on the webpage. So maybe we can look at the following week. Laura's probably already looked at the following week.
We have the 17th of September.
The 17th of September. Would that be enough time then to get it into Katie? Does the 17th of September work for committee members?
We only have 2 in the meeting.
What's that?
I could do the 17th.
No.
I think she was saying there was only a couple of committee members logged on.
Oh, yeah, it does look like we've only got a couple. Well, maybe we just take a little recess here and get the rest of the committee members. I have one committee member in the room, Rabi. I have the chief building official. He has a mic today, Richard Rogers. So why don't we just give it a few minutes? Jody's also not here in room. Maybe there's some traffic. So we'll take about a 5-minute recess. We'll mute our mics and we'll come back in just a few minutes.
Morning, Tony.
Morning. All right, it looks like we have all the committee members now online. And so what we were talking about is rescheduling the next committee meeting, which is scheduled for the 3rd, right after the holiday, pushing that out until the 17th. And I want to make sure that works for the committee members here. I believe it works for Adelie. I don't know if it works for anybody else. If you could give a thumbs up, committee members, or somehow indicate that the 17th of September would work for you. Okay, it looks like so far the only one with a conflict is Janice.
And if that time works for everybody else, I'm okay. You can meet without me.
Okay, thanks, Janice. All right, well, I think that's what we're going to do now is we're going to reschedule that the meeting for the 3rd to September 17th. And we'll make that official now. And that'll give us some time to upload the remaining docs and then any tabled items here, including the little work group on the lithium ion fire protection systems and the testing. I think that'll give enough time for them to come back with something substantive. So today we're going to start on tabled items. I think we only have a couple of tabled items left. You all did great yesterday at yesterday's meeting. We made it through a lot of things. So one of the items I had for homework was locating the single toilet room amendments in chapter 29. Jody had a good suggestion of where to locate that, and I sent that document to Laura. Laura could probably share that on the screen. Shows where we will propose to locate it. So I propose to locate it right up front here, just right where we have the scoping charging language to say that you use the table to obviously calculate your fixtures, and then just the exception that one single user toilet room shall be permitted for the following. I removed the word all in front of structures. So structures and tenant spaces with a total occupant load, including both employees and customers, of not more than 30, group B occupancies. Before it said business occupancies, and I know that there were questions that we received about that. So I changed that to group B occupancies with a total occupant load, including both employees and customers, of not more than 50. Any feedback on that?
I like it.
Thanks for that, Adelie. Jody, any input on that?
That should be fun. Yeah.
Okay. Great. So that we'll roll that into chapter 29. What else do we have tabled, Laura?
I'm seeing we have item 16-9, 17-8, 17-9, and 17-13 on the matrix. And we
Okay.
have SEAO here. I don't know if it's time to cover those yet or not.
Yes, yep. And I see Seth. Thanks for joining us, Seth. And I see Ryan as well there. So with that, Jeremy, I'm going to turn it over to you to cover
Great.
the tabled items. You can reintroduce them and let us know if you need anything.
Great. Sounds good. Thank you. Committee, turn your attention to 16-9 in the matrix. This was the minimum uniformly distributed live load table, table 1607.1. There was a public proposal, SCA02. So Laura, could you please pull up SCA02? And I'm going to turn it over to SCAO representation, Seth or others on the call to go ahead and talk through.
Yeah,
this one.
so I did not write this proposal. I think this was Amit on our group. And what he's doing is bring forward some important updates that are making their way through ASC 728 process right now. There is discussion on that these will also potentially be a 2027 IBC proposal to get them taken care of ahead of 728, or to make sure they're aligned when 728 gets adopted much further down the road. It's really just clarifying subsets of office space, what the live load requirements are, to reduce some of the burden on the design criteria for essentially meeting space.
There were committee questions that came up yesterday regarding, has there been a consideration or concern about limiting floor area, the total floor area size? Was there any thoughts on that nationally that you guys heard of, or any putting like a limit or a threshold on there?
Like to how much of the floor plate that you can have. Sorry, Amit is messaging me. He's logged on. Gosh, he's having connection issues, but I'll keep going while he tries to get connected. He's more knowledgeable about this than me. I don't believe there's any discussion of that. And this is specifically that areas that don't have direct access to the public. If you actually do, there was a paper that's part of the ASC 7 proposal, and I don't think we attach it to this, but there was a study done, and basically 50 pounds a square foot covers typical office conditions where you don't have public just coming in, no assembly type or pseudo assembly type areas, lobbies and stuff like that. If you look at an office where like our firm is, or other typical offices, you're typically much lower than even 50. So again, the idea was to reduce the burden on these areas where it was appropriate. Yeah, I don't have as much background as Amit does, and we'll see if he can get connected here.
My comment was on changing it from general public to public use, since that was a defined term within our code book.
Yeah, just so you know, Seth, yesterday that came up. Your proposal says general public, and the committee recommended changing that to align with the a defined term in chapter 2.
That totally makes sense to me.
Yeah, Laura, I don't know if you can help out Amit. Maybe we move on to the next one. Amit is trying to connect. He says he can't turn on unmute or turn on his camera. I don't know if he can just call in to the meeting. I could give him a call right now, and we could move on to the next item and kind of table this just temporarily until we move on to the next item that was brought up. I think that might be helpful. Come back to this one once Amit comes back on board. So it's matrix, if that's okay.
Need to go back to 16-4.
Oh, 16-4, sorry. Sorry, SEA 01. Public proposal SEA 01 clarifies how the primary occupancy of a structure is to be determined. I thought this one got approved by the committee yesterday.
Yeah, I think it was approved.
Yeah, this one was approved by the committee, I believe, yesterday in my notes. I don't, you guys have the same record?
Yeah, I've got flag to tell utilities is my note on that one.
Well, the one change we made to it was there was the public that was left in item 3 in RCD 3, I think is where we added a strikeout.
Oh.
Oh, the second bullet point.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see. This has nothing to do with the public proposal. This was just, yeah, I see. This was the
This
committee
is just a
action.
strikeout of the words public throughout that one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nothing related to the public proposal from SEAO on this one. This was just the committee's recommendations for cleanup on table 1604.5, the use of public assembly. Do we need to cover that right now on this one, or can we just stick with the SEAO proposal items that were tabled yesterday?
We can do the SEAO. Amit just joined.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you able to unmute?
Where'd he go?
It's bottom left of my screen for me. I see you now, but you're still muted.
Let's go to item 17-8. Oh, there you go, Ahmed. I see you. You just unmuted.
Can we hear you, Matt?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
perfect.
All right.
So we're talking about the proposal I think you wrote for live load in office space.
Yeah.
So I did my best to kind of queue it up, but I know you can speak better to it than I can.
Yeah. So this proposal is just big. Can you hear now?
Yeah.
Okay. So this proposal is basically coming from a research work that was done.
Go ahead, Ahmed.
There seems to be a big lag.
Oh, he's got internet issues or something.
We make it easier to just to clarify, the question is really about a limit on the area of the room. Is that what the people want to know?
That came up yesterday, yeah. I think Rabi brought that up, if Rabi's on the call.
Yes, I think the question is, how big is this room? Is it 2,000 square foot? You know, if you go with the occupant load, is more than 200. Are you going to use it as an, you know, load of an office or an assembly?
I don't recall that being noted in that report that Seth was talking about. I can pull it up and try and dig through it. I don't recall us discussing that either. I mean, yeah, I guess if you had this huge meeting room, you could argue that wasn't really a meeting room. We haven't thought that through.
Yeah, the other question is if you have a series of small rooms. That one came from Jody. If you have a series of small conference room or meeting room. So
I mean, if you have a series of them, you would still, the study showed you really wouldn't fit that many people in these. And as long as it's closed to the public, if it's open, in fact, I've seen some, recently where you've got a meeting room that has access to a corridor that isn't behind an area that would be office space or a private office. So in that case, you could argue someone could just decide to have a little party and load it up. But in a meeting room, you would assume you're using the occupants of that space. So even if there was mostly meeting rooms, the idea is still that there just wouldn't be that many occupants to stack shoulder to shoulder to get that higher load.
Any other?
So is it sort of your opinion or of what was written in the study that basically assembly occupancy loading is a little too high? I mean, is that kind of what?
Yeah, basically to paraphrase the study is, if you apply assembly or even the ADPSF to an office space, it's really conservative for what's actually there. Dave, I'm sure we could share the report that is being referenced here, but I don't remember the exact words in the report, but it's 50 PSF is more than enough to cover office space. And it was authored by people who are very involved with ASC 7 and have a very long history designing offices and working with those type of clients. So I can certainly vouch for the validity of the report, study, whatever we're calling it, paper. But I don't know of any discussion of restricting, the percentage or the overall square footage of that area.
So is this a report or is it an actual code change that's going through ASCE right now?
It's both. It's a paper, and the paper is kind of the reason for proposal for the ASC 7 change proposal.
Okay. How far has it gotten through the code change proposal with ASCE? Because I know our stuff takes quite a while just to get through the code change process.
Yes, let me look.
Thank you.
I think it is about to be balloted by main committee this fall. Or let's see here. Let me check. Oh, never mind. It has already been balloted by main committee. Yes, it was live load ballot number 1.
You guys hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Amit.
Okay, I don't know, I'm having real issues with my connection. So, yeah, this has been balloted and approved by the main committee at ASC 7. I don't know, I was just going to share the paper. I don't know if you have if the committee has had a chance to look at some visuals about what the loading might look like. I don't know if I can share my screen and show that. Is it possible to do that?
I think they put it in the chat, the link in the chat.
Yeah, so someone put the link in the chat. to the paper.
Okay. So if you actually look at the loading in there for a typical office floor, and I think a real telling one is in the paper, if you look at what, there's an aerial view of, live load on a Golden Gate Bridge celebration that is there. And you look how packed that is, that's only 60 pounds a square foot. So actually, if you keep going, scrolling down, so the loads are basically limited by just the number of people who can be in a space in there, and it's not accessible to the public. It's just people meeting in an office.
Yeah, and I just looked it up. Amit's correct. Yeah, this ballot was approved for 7/28, like 10 days ago. So it is fully approved for the next version of ASC 7. All comments resolved.
So it sounds like one, that it is aligning with future approved code. Two, that perhaps assembly loading is a little, we're very conservative to start with. And third, that it certainly doesn't apply in an office situation where you are not open to the public. Is that the gist of it?
Correct.
Yeah, that's a good paraphrase.
Yes. Again, this is only for, like typical office floors that layouts that we are seeing nowadays, where you don't have like typical partitions for cubicles and stuff like that. It's just collaborative workspaces. There you go. And that's a picture of Golden Gate Bridge celebration, and that's only 60 pounds a square foot live load estimated. And in that same article, you can look, there is a series of photographs that are showing what a typical office loading will look like. Is generally about 12 to 13 pounds a square foot. And then you keep adding people without taking out any furniture, you just cram people in, I think is the maximum. There you go. It talks about, if you look at the lower one where you're cramming all these people in, that's only about, I think,
the upper figure is 48 pounds.
48 pounds a square foot.
The lower one is 58.
Right.
Which will never occur.
Yeah. And there was this research done, and there was some reliability analysis and all that done, and over a 50-year period, which is the life of the building, this is what was supposed to, the 50 pounds a square foot was appropriate live loaded in there. Designing for 100 PSF is just a little bit too conservative.
A quick question. Was there any discussion on live load reduction or limiting or anything like that?
Yeah, live load reduction would still apply. It's the same thing, just like as a typical office building.
Sure. Any other questions from the committee on this one?
Amit, do you have objection if we were to request that they change general public to public use so it aligns with the defined term in the building code?
Change from general public to public, what was that?
Yeah, we talked about this before you were on. In the table, it says access to the general public, and they want to change general public to, what was it, public?
Public use is what's defined in chapter 2.
Because it's a defined term. I don't have any issue with that. I mean, I assume that you're okay with it as well.
Yeah, generally I don't have, probably should look and see what the term public use means, but yeah, I mean, at least it's in a similar vein, I think so.
It's just nice as a plan reviewer when we use defined terms that are in chapter 2. Because if you go to chapter 2 and look at public use, I think it's intended to mean what your general public statement is.
Ahmed, it says public use, interior or exterior rooms or spaces that are made available to the general public. Public use may be provided at a building or facility that is privately or publicly owned.
And
Yeah, I
so
think-
your line item would say work areas that do not have direct access for public use.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
Any other thoughts from the committee on this one? Comments?
I'm assuming this is a substantial cost savings as well to buildings. Is that correct?
Yes,
It's certainly a
will.
cost savings. Substantial. Yeah. And Jeremy, just a heads up, I have to drop off for about a half an hour here in a few minutes. I think the next one you were going to talk about, Amit can speak to, but I'll be back on 10:30, 10:45-ish.
Do you want the committee to hold on anything specific? There's the special inspections for reinforcement. There's special inspections for cold form, conventional light frame, and then I think the aluminum ones.
Yeah, I think Dave can speak to both of those. I can certainly help if the committee is in favor of not approving. If they're going to approve it, I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, I think there's concerns with cost on the continuous special inspections for reinforcements. Does the committee have ready to kind of provide a thumbs up or thumbs down, approval, disapproval? The current is approval as amended, as discussed, or disapproval, the two options on this SEAO proposal item 2. We got thumbs ups, thumbs up.
Yep, approve as amended.
I think you approved as amended.
Great. Thanks, committee. Thanks for sharing it, CEO. So let's go through the next item is 17-8, table 1705.3 SEAO proposal number 5. And Pierre, that was a slight cost decrease on that one. Sorry about that. On that last one.
Yep, thank you.
Jeremy,
Uh,
I think my question is, what we are doing now is not adequate, because based on the current practice is, if you're talking about vertical members are assembled, and then they call for special inspection and the jurisdiction inspection, and they inspect before they close the form, and they move on to the same thing for horizontal. And I think by changing it, the intent of continuous is to make sure that the special detailing for moment frame and the boundary element and so on are observed and are done according to the special detailing and the construction document. And it seems to me that we've been doing that. All, these members are well inspected. To changing it to continuous inspection, it means that the inspector has to be there, basically monitoring and directing the assembly of these members. And I think the cost will be big, because instead of assembly the members and call for inspections, and you take, whatever, an amount, a couple of hours to do the columns and so on. Suddenly it has to be, by making it continuous, it has to be there all the time during the work. And I think it's going to be costly and maybe unnecessary to be continuous. It is, it is done. And also this table was not changed since forever. And ACI was, talking about continuous inspection of the moment frame and so on. And I think the way it's done now, it looks like adequate. Why we have to change it to continuous?
So if we're talking about SCAO 4, I'm on the SCAO Coast Committee. I help write this one. And really the change comes from the fact that this is a requirement in the ACI 31819 now. It was an add in this last cycle, and now that we're adopting the more current version of the IBC, and the reference standard is the 31819. That section 2613.13. That one's it was an added section in the ACI that specifically mentions that those elements need the continuous special inspections, and it just seems like it's been missed in the IBC 2024-1705 table. They added it for the welding of the reinforcement, but part of the requirements from the ACI 31819 requires that it's also for the placement of the reinforcing at those specific those elements, the special moment frame and the boundary elements of the special structural walls. So in my mind, it's a requirement that's in the ACI. And it should be something that is done, and it's not. I don't think it's really an add, because it again, it should be something that's done. This is just to help clarify that is the requirements within the reference standard.
If I can add a little bit more to it, the continuous special inspections and periodic special inspections are the two categories that are there for all different types of inspections that are there. And a continuous doesn't mean that you have to watch them erect everything in there, but you need to be there and inspect all the reinforcing that is there, as opposed to periodic, where you're doing just sort of sampling of the thing. And these are considered to be some very important aspects of a structural system that you really need to have to make sure that they are properly installed. But it doesn't mean that you're watching the contractor sort of place them and put them in properly, but you do need to inspect all the aspects of it. So it's not that you do just a sample, do it once, at one location and then maybe another location in here. So there's a difference between continuous and special, and there are a whole bunch of other areas which require continuous special inspections. And this is considered one of the more important aspects that need special inspections on a continuous basis.
I think if we make it continuous, the special inspection go to the definition in the building official, and it says you have to be there. And I'm sure that the special inspections, they are not going to, they will have a different fee for the continuous, inspection based on the definition and the legal, instead of, you call me and we inspect it after you finish. And I don't know why it's not changed in 2024. It's not. I mean, the continuous inspection was mentioned in 318.14 for moment frame, but there was no requirement in IBC. I think that the standard of work we are doing now will provide, the observation necessary to make sure that the special detailing are properly installed. But I think you put in continuous, and the only way I think I looked around and in the coast, and the only state that they changed it is California. It's the same as what you guys are proposing.
I mean, by that definition, then basically we don't need to have continuous special inspections for anything, correct?
No, there is a special inspections required.
No, for continuous special inspections, because you're concerned that having continuous inspections would require a higher cost, which is true. It is a higher cost, and I think that's the intent, to have a continuous special inspection on these items. By what you're suggesting then is that we don't need to have continuous special inspections for anything else either.
No, I think in the enforcement, I think we are doing the continuous inspections. But I think and basically you observe all, whether it's vertical member or horizontal member in the moment frame or boundary elements, we do that. But my concern is when you said it's continuous, suddenly the special inspection will say, hey, I have to have somebody there to observe it. And there is a difference between the fee that you call me when you finish and I will inspect it, compared to I have to be there, because that's a legal way of what it is continuous inspection. I mean, the fee would be different. I am confident they would have that.
Yeah, and I agree. Continuous inspections would definitely is a lot more compared to a periodic inspection, but that's what is required.
Unless we are what we used to have, we are failing. We are not doing the work. But in my experience, we always, they inspect all the reinforcement of.
Just to be clear, again, we come back to the adopted code that this OSSC has already picked up as being ACI 318 for 2019, and it says continuous. So technically this should already be done. Is that, I don't know why there's an argument now about saying something should be done that's already in the code.
So
Jeremy,
reference standards are only referenced to the extent that they would be referenced in the code. So there's not an ability for a reference standard to imply special inspection standards. That's not how the code works.
I think in fact is in the ACI say, unless there is no requirement in the building code, then you have to follow the standards, correct?
Yeah, so you got to go to chapter 19. We got to go to, if you want to take a look at chapter 19, Laura. OSSC, chapter 19. And we look at the scope. And we look at 1901.2. So 1901. Well, the scope says the provisions of this chapter shall govern the materials, quality control, design and construction of concrete used in structures. And then 1901.2 says structural concrete shall be designed and constructed. So that's part of that scope in accordance with ACI 318 as supplemented in section 1905. And then you scroll down, it doesn't say that you're go to ACI for the quality control, and then we have the special inspection requirements down below in 1901.6. And then just like Rabi mentioned, in ACI 318, you look at that, which we don't have access to share. But Chris has that pulled up, Chris Wong. So ACI 318.19 states, it says, unless otherwise specified in the general building code, items shall be continuously or periodically inspected in accordance with sections 2613.3.2 and sections 2613.3.3 respectively. And then 2613.3.2 gives the continuous special inspection requirements that you're seeing in the SEAO proposal. So that's kind of generally how this is laid out from a code enforcement application, just so you can kind of see what's going on here. And this is kind of a consistent issue with, I think SEAO knows this as well, is that we've got the AISC 360 for steel. It has quality control assurance requirements that we don't directly point to. We carve out those things. We point to the special inspection tables. Same with the others. And then now we've got the stainless steel one where the model code is pointing to the quality control of that standard. Same with, you'll see the proposal later that Dave Terry's will be talking about with the aluminum design manual. So there's these standards that have these quality control requirements that our code, we've got the special inspection requirements. So there's some overlap, kind of cross coordination on how those are intended to be applied. Just wanted to share that. So this is up for committee discussion. Any other thoughts, input? Just want to point out, I called Carlson Testing this morning related to the metal building, pre-engineered metal building systems line item that we had under 17.6 yesterday that's on tabled. And I also mentioned this one and asked them. They said it would not be feasible to have someone there the entire duration of, and they interpreted this as having to be there for the entire duration, just like Rabi said. So somehow, if this does get approved, there would have to be some clarification on what continuous special inspection would mean, I would think, for this item.
Jeremy, I called and got some from our special inspection testing over here. And one thing to remember is we have at least 2 hours of travel time billed on top of everything for just the distance over here. And they have, from one engineer on just that metal building piece, it was an extra $1,200 on the building. And then Atlas Testing, which used to be MTI, is $120 an hour plus a minimum 2-hour travel time. So just as a heads up on, I sent all that information to Tony.
Thanks for sharing that.
We don't have access to special inspectors in a lot of our areas over here as readily as the valley.
Any other input from SEAO or committee on this topic? Hearing none, can we get some recommendations from the committee members on approval, disapproval, or modification to the proposal?
Oh, my concern is we are right now, unless, I'm just, if we don't do here in, we didn't do a lot of in Salem as special moment frame, but every concrete columns are inspected, beams and all that things whether they are special or just gravity. And I think right now we are doing every vertical or horizontal lateral resistance system is inspected, but we go and say it has to be continuously inspected. I think my concern is from, you know, the special inspection agency, then from legal, it has to be there. And if we go to the definition, it says it has to be there on site and observe the work that they are doing. And I don't think the intent is to have the, you know, the inspector or the engineer kind of supervise the assemblage of the reinforcement. And I don't mind to have some explanation is they don't have to be there to supervise the work, but they have to inspect every lateral system. But if we do it this way, then the cost of special inspection will increase, you know. It will increase a lot, not, you know, because there's a difference between they call you to come and do the inspection of a cage or columns or a few columns, and compared to you have to be there and see everything.
Just
and they should, you know, if they want to change this, it has to go to the national and change it in the building code. Then we will discuss that change. But the way it is right now, there's an increase in cost.
I see where you're coming from, and I think that's fine. We've already started the process of working with IBC to adjust some of this special inspection. I will add, though, that if there's these new codes are coming up with new ways of doing lateral systems that are more complex than they've always been done, and they're critical. If someone is designing, if an engineer chooses to design to a standard to sharpen their pencil to the point where they can use a concrete moment frame, that comes with the added cost of making sure that it's constructed exactly as designed. If that takes more special inspection and that's a cost, that engineer should consider that when they're using that in a distant county that doesn't have special inspection or whichever. Those complex structures need to be limited then to where they can be installed properly.
And just as a contrary thing, if it is not a continuous, then it's periodic. And periodic basically means that you can just inspect on a sampling basis, which I don't think is appropriate for a system like this. You could just have to come in. You don't get to inspect everything when you do, say, periodic. So that's the.
I think this type of building, they are all inspected. It's not. I mean,
But then there is no authority that way to say, no, you have to inspect everything, right? You're just basically, it's like, is that a standard of practice?
Then we have to change it to the national code.
Because I'm concerned that, you know, the inspector would say, okay, I have to do periodic, and then come and do, you know, instead of inspecting all the elements of the system, they will just do, you know, sample of those,
Well,
which is not the intent.
Then I think we have to change the definition of continuous inspection. Because I think it's really, you don't have to have the special inspection watching the assemblage of a cage of a column.
Adelie, go ahead.
I just had a question, Tony, for clarification. Sometimes when we get plans in, the engineer requires special inspections above chapter 17, and that's part of their engineering documents. Would the engineer that designed that, if they felt the need, make that a requirement as part of their design standards versus us having a cite it, write it path or the special inspections with the continuous?
I think that could always be a path. It could also be a structural observation requirement. I mean, there's multiple ways to get to this, I think.
Okay. I understand both sides of the concern, and the engineers are the ones designing it, but I think that while they're working that out, they could still require it when they felt the need in complex systems.
Yeah, if the engineer specifies a special inspection, then yes, you'd enforce that. That's a requirement in chapter 17. But yeah, I think where Amit's coming from, and Chris and Dave, is that the engineers are pushing back and would push back and not want to require this. And so that's the issue.
Sorry, Jeremy, so they want it put in the code, but if it's not in the code, they don't want to require it? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, there's some engineers that would want to have it, and there's some that would not. Some engineers would want to reduce costs for the owner, so just do minimum code. And some engineers, where it's a more advanced, complex system like this, like Dave Terry's was saying, would want this, and they could add those, extra ACI 318 requirements in their documents, and you would enforce that.
Okay. Thank you.
So action by the committee, any thumbs up, thumbs down for disapproving, in favor of waiting until a national code change to bring this in, thumbs up to approve this proposal.
There's not a thumbs down on the reaction, Jeremy.
Oh,
At least not on mine, but as it's written currently, I would disapprove it since it's not finished, and the engineers that have those concerns could still require that. I understand it's not across the board, but it's also a little frustrating as a plan reviewer to be made the bad guy on projects as well. So I think if we could all work together and but right now I just would vote to disapprove it as it is, just for me.
We can do a roll call.
yeah, roll call from the committee. So we just got Adelise.
Yeah, so Adelie is a no. Tom?
Disapprove as well. And just as further, I've been brought in on a lawsuit about the definition of continuous inspections as well, and of really having a hard time trying to figure out what that means. So better definition would definitely help in a lot of ways.
Thank you. Jody?
Disapprove.
Matthew Amos?
Disapprove.
Ruby?
Disapprove.
Nathan? Morris? All right. It's a majority. Is Ryan there?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Ryan?
I'm here.
Yeah. So I think
Can you hear me okay?
We're a little loud.
A little quiet still?
There you go.
Disapprove.
Thank you. And that's it.
Thank you, everybody, on that one. It's next item is 17-9 SEAO proposal SEO 6. This was the section 1705.13.5. So now I'm let SEAO speak up to this proposal, SEAO 6 in the matrix. Architectural components. You pull that one up, Laura, just so the SEO folks on the call can see this one. Yeah. So so if Amit, Chris, or Dave, or any others from SEO representation could.
Yeah,
Go over this
I
one.
could speak on this. There were a couple members on the codes committee at SEAO that felt there should be special inspections for some of the non-structural components, the architectural components, really the load bearing partition walls, because they were seeing that a lot of those systems were sort of being overlooked in the field during construction. And in particular, they're worried about the compatibility of those elements, those components, with the structural system for risk category 3 and 4 structures specifically. So, as currently written in the model code 1705-13-5 for architectural components, there is a periodic special inspection requirement for those elements, but there was an exception for what was believed to be sort of light frame interior type walls, and it was sort of broad strokes. A lot of times these elements, even for the risk category 3 and 4 structures, they were falling under those exceptions. So this is really to modify the language in the exception to keep those exceptions in place for the risk category 1 and 2 structures, but to require the periodic special inspections on the essential facilities in the risk category 3 and 4 structures. So, was there anything you wanted to add, Dave, to this?
Just maybe to explain a bit of the idea. Let's say you had risk category 4 that's supposed to be functional after an earthquake, and there was connections the engineer had that are supposed to allow for movement of the structure, and those walls will not rack and fall and crack and be a problem for occupancy after an event, and it wasn't built correctly, and there's been some concern of recent risk category 3 and 4 construction where that's been missed, and engineers have been able to catch some of it but not all of it. And so if it was in here that someone else also needed to be paying attention to how this stuff was put together, we could avoid issues in the future when we need structures to be occupiable.
Go ahead, Jody.
Yeah, if the concern, I think my worry about this one is that it is all the cladding, all the interior and exterior non-bearing walls, which is a significant amount. So if there's a particular, like if there's special movement detailing we're worried about, is there a way we can limit it to just that? Because if it's every single wall, and I mean, the type 3 or the risk category 3, as we know, is like the high schools. Like it's a lot of walls, a lot of a significant increase in these periodic inspections, if I understand it correctly. So if there's particular places we're worried about, could we limit it to that instead of this broad swath across the whole building?
I don't think that's unreasonable. We'd have to noodle on it with the people that I didn't write this one either. So, but yeah, it could be.
Yeah. I believe this was one that Seth championed for. So if possible, I'm wondering if is it possible to table this till Seth gets back on the call? I think this was the one he was getting at about wanting to speak towards.
I can speak a little bit to it as well, since
perfect.
I'm a little bit familiar with it. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and guess that this came up because of the T-Corp project that we recently worked on, and there was dozens of locations, if not more, where we had specifically detailed joints in the stud walls to accommodate movements. so that we would, essentially have no real major damage and no corners falling off on partition walls and other locations within the structure. So I think someone mentioned on this call just a little bit ago about maybe identifying in the drawings where those specific movements are required and where those special joints are, and having those be the locations where that inspection is actually required. I would agree with that. I think that seems like a reasonable compromise instead of having every single one being required to have the inspection, because I do agree that may seem excessive, but identifying which ones may be more appropriate.
So how much time would SEAO have to maybe doctor this a bit to make it more agreeable to the committee?
Yeah, Tony, I think when's the proposed meeting?
September 17th.
Oh, okay.
September
Yeah, so
17th.
that's reasonable. If you want us to make some adjustments and give it back, we could do that.
Great.
The other issue, I think we have to tell us kind of something, what is the cost increase to the special inspection? And also, is there an attempt to change this code at the national level instead of cause the building department to fail to do the inspection, or you have to add more costs? So we have to find a way to make sure that the inspection is done instead of just, increasing the cost.
I'm not sure if this one was on the list to go up to IBC, but after a discussion on the last one, I can add this one and we'll be pinging IBC in the near future.
I think, when it comes back, I can say this again. I think I'm definitely in favor of it for the risk category 4 structures. Risk category 3, I'm trying to remember what's the goal of the risk category 3. Is that one? It's not that essential facilities level. What is the goal for risk category 3?
But also, is this architectural component are designed for immediate occupancy or for life safety?
I mean, look up the risk category 3 versus the 4. I personally think it's more critical for the 4, because that would be, probably, unless there's a bunch of big glass walls that are attached to some of this light gauge, probably not going to have things that are dangerous to people when they fail. But it really depends on the particular case.
The other piece I was thinking about that it could be tied to are like required fire barrier, fire rated separations or some things like that that really do need to make it through.
Risk category 3 just is a basic, was buildings and other structures that represent a substantial hazard to human life in the event of failure, including but not limited to, and then it kind of goes through the occupancy numbers that include high schools and things.
Well, I guess when you're looking at the adjustments to the proposal, maybe also look at it through that lens. What the goal is for category 4 and what the goal is for category 3, and which sorts of detailing is important for each of those goals.
And I think we included the category 3 elements because when you do the engineering design and we're figuring out the actual demands and the loads on it per ASC 7, that gets the higher importance factor as well, in some of the wind categories. So it's an importance factor that's greater than a 1 essentially. I think that was where we were approaching it from. But yeah, I think I agree. We have time to tweak. I think we were trying to stick as much to the model code as possible, and we were trying to capture those elements. So when we were putting this together, I agree. We didn't think about it encapsulating like Jody's saying all those elements, and I agree. I don't think that should be the case, and I think this probably should be amended a little. So
We'll work on it.
Sounds good. Thank you. So this one's tabled for future discussion. Thanks, everybody. Next item is 17-13 on the matrix. It was SEO proposal number 7. Aluminum construction. Dave, can you walk us through this? Thanks.
Yeah. This will come back to the same issue we had with the concrete, but essentially we are now seeing like fully complete aluminum like balconies that attach to a structure and more than just the railings that we sometimes saw. And the question kind of was, well, what sort of inspection is required? What kind of fabricator approval is required for aluminum? There really isn't anything in there. So I went to the current aluminum design manual and found that there is requirements. They do all these things. But again, I guess the question is if it's not, the code doesn't say you have to do that, then maybe this isn't being done. And that's the question. But the idea was that right now in that chapter N of the aluminum design manual, it says that documentation to prove all this stuff has been done can be requested by the EOR, but it doesn't mention the jurisdiction could ask to see it. So that was really the intent of this, is to say, look, you should be following what's in the aluminum design manual, and that if you didn't do it, because I'm not really sure that everybody is, you could look to a special inspection to cover that. And that also the jurisdiction could ask to see the documentation in addition to the EOR. So that was the intent there, is that we just aren't seeing that people are doing this aluminum in a like we do for steel, to see something that a fabricator has approval and that sort of thing. Oops, you're muted, Jeremy.
Thank you. Is there any chance you could share with the committee what the requirements would be when following the QA requirements of the aluminum design manual?
I have some screenshots of chapter N. Do you want me to put those in the chat, or because it's like 3 pages? But they're basically, okay, hold on a second.
I don't know if they have just kind of a generic table of what the inspection requirements would be. Is it less periodic and continuous?
It kind of goes through that they have to have a program in place, sort of like you would have for a steel fabricator that is approved, pre-qualified is kind of a thing. They have to have their welder performance records, all that stuff listed. I think I just posted the first page. It seems like it's really more of your basic qualified fabricator. However, there is a case where you could do some of this in the field, and that now would include the same sort of a qualification of your welders and review of the welds, but in the field. So, and that one could be more easily a special inspection issue if they're doing it in the field, which I have seen a couple of times now, field welds for aluminum. Let me finish copying these in.
Any questions from the committee on this one as you look through the shared information?
And from a reviewer perspective, the idea was we say, hey, just show that you've got the qualification documents, and they provide them. And if they can't, well, then they'd have to get a special inspector to say they confirm that the aluminum welds and materials are to match the drawings. And I believe there's a shall in there too, so that if a jurisdiction just wanted to not deal with it, they could. It's up, they could just not consider it, which they could do anyway. But this way, it doesn't have, and we're trying to limit that it doesn't like flag for everything. But if you got a balcony that's fully assembled and attaches the side of a mid-rise, that perhaps you'd want to ask in that case, if you so choose, to, hey, could you just show me you got your quality control documents in order?
Laura, could you show chapter 20 or bring that up for the committee? That way the committee can see what chapter 20 generally requires for quality design fab and erection of aluminum. Chapter 20 is a little different. It basically says this chapter shall govern the quality design, fabrication, and erection of aluminum. And then it says aluminum used for structural purposes in building structures shall comply with the AAASM 35 and AAADM. So really there's broad authority for the building official to require everything that Dave's putting or sharing here with the proposal. It's just getting more specific. Makes sense. Any questions from the committee? Thoughts? Rabi, any thoughts on this one?
I'm confused. Reading the text, it says special inspection testing will be in accordance to the AADM. So if the fabricator has quality assurance program, you don't need a special inspector?
Right, you just need the documents that would be listed in the ADM. They just provide those and say, here, we met the ADM, here's what the ADM says you need. And so it's really just showing the documents that met the requirements that they should already have, and you say, okay, good to go. The special inspection part was just to offer like, well, if you didn't have this in order, which I'm not sure that all these aluminum fabricators do have, then you could hire a special inspector to show that you've met all these requirements.
This one seems different to me than the concrete one because these are requirements that they're supposed to be meeting, and this is more about outlining what the building official's options are on requesting information, and then also giving them an additional option outside of the manual for a special inspector instead of the qualifications documents. So this one seems better to me than the concrete version of continuous inspections. I don't know what the structural folks on the committee think.
We got Ahmed, Ryan, structural folks, Seth's back. If you guys want to chime in on this one, add more thoughts from SEAO.
Yeah, I'm just jumping back in, so I'm not sure what exactly is being discussed, other than the aluminum one. Is there a question to us specifically?
Jody asked if so she sees this where the building code right now for aluminum basically says you comply with the reference standard outright. It doesn't say just for design and installation. It basically points to it for the quality control requirements. The quality control requirements have been posted in the chat from Dave Terry's, and there's a bunch of different requirements: field cuts, field fab holes, field different things, but it has the language QCI. It's not specifically a special inspector per our chapter 17. So this proposal was generally trying to give more, I guess, flexible authority of the building official on how to prove this. to meet the intent of the reference standards here, which is a little different from concrete and steel chapters in 17.
The biggest issue that we've ran into is if it's not explicitly listed in chapter 17, therefore in our special inspection tables, inspectors don't have any teeth to write NCRs or flag things. You know, because the contractor is going to say, well, it's not in chapter 17, that's not your purview, we're going to ignore this. And it sounds silly, but I've seen it multiple times. Even with the light gauge one, which I think you guys talked about while I was off, you know, even recently on, you know, this Portland Airport project, it became a whole issue because it's not in our special inspection table. So therefore, contractor says, special inspector, you shouldn't be able to write NCRs on this because it's not an inspection item. So the intent of these proposals was to give the inspector the clout to be able to write NCRs and say, hey, this doesn't meet the drawings. You know, the intent of the drawings is this, and you're not doing that. And therefore you need to, you know, it's raising that flag to the engineer that this is not right. And then the engineer can choose to, you know, buy off on anything that an NCR is written on.
Yeah, and specific related to aluminum, I think we have special inspection requirements spelled out for all different materials. The only thing that was missing was for aluminum in there. So this adds the aluminum into that section.
Any national discussions you guys have had on this one, Dave?
I forwarded these ideas onto the NCSEA Special Inspection Committee for their consideration. I haven't heard if they're pursuing submitting for the 27 IBC yet. So that deadline's not till January. But it's, you know, the concept of the proposal and you know, the issues behind why we pushed it forward were communicated. In that process, I was made aware that in Connecticut, they actually have a even more robust state amendment where they require a lot of special inspection for a lot of different things. We didn't go as far as they did, but we can certainly share what was shared with us. One of the past code advisory chair for NCSEA is from Connecticut, and he authored a change proposal several cycles ago that requires a lot of this special inspection stuff very explicitly.
Thanks. Just so you know, Seth, on the 17035 architectural special inspection, that one's tabled. SEAO, you guys are going to be working on, you guys promised to work on adjusting that language and bringing it back to the committee at the next meeting, just as a heads up. So the others can fill you in.
I'll get with you, Seth, and fill you in, yeah.
So any other thoughts from the committee on this specific SEA 07? Hearing, if there are no more, if we could do a roll call on this one, Laura? Okay. Approve or disapprove? Roll call.
Janice,
Disapprove.
Jaleski,
Yeah, disapprove.
Ryan,
Sorry, I was on mute there. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. Disapprove.
Adelaide,
Disapprove.
Jody,
Approve.
Matthew,
Disapprove.
Ruby,
Disapprove.
and Nathan.
Disapprove.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I think that's all I had on the tabled items from our list, except for from SEAO's proposals. The only thing we wanted to go back to, unless I'm wrong, were there any other SEAO proposals, Laura or Tony, that you saw that we were holding on for this morning? I don't
No.
have any on. Okay, we're done with the SEO proposals that were tabled. Thanks to SEO for being here for those. But I think we did have one more tabled item. It was table 16045, right, Laura? On the you brought that up initially in the meeting. Matrix item 16
I think we,
4. Public, there was a use of public. I think that was
no, we're fine.
Oh,
Approved as amended.
did we decide to get rid of the word public?
Yeah.
Everywhere on that table? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so where are we at? We're at matrix item 18-8, frost protection. (18-8), section 18095 of the code. During the just a little background on this one. So this is section 18095. You'll see the blue underline there under item 1, frost protection. Extending below the frost line of the locality, there's this new proposed in accordance with table 18095. And then if you scroll down, you'll see the new table 18095 lists all the counties and the frost line depths with some footnotes. The reason this is in here for your review and consideration is during the design criteria hub kind of training sessions that we provided for local jurisdictions, we got a question from Clackamas County Building Department who told us that, hey, for frost line depth, we're seeing it shown as 12. For commercial buildings and commercial application, we have a threshold that we require in Clackamas County. So our residential code currently says 12 inches frost depth for that. For commercial structures, they are enforcing under 2,500 foot elevations, they enforce 12. And then above or between 2,500 and 4,000 foot elevation, they enforce 18. And then above 4,000 foot elevation, they enforce 24-inch frost depths for their commercial buildings. And they also recommend that. So that's what's being done in Clackamas County currently. And they question why the design criteria hub was only showing 12 when they're recommending higher, deeper frost depths. So we let them know, well, that's what the code's been for a long time. And so existing Oregon amendment for the res code, they couldn't enforce deeper than 12, but commercial, there is no path. It just says the frost line of the locality. So we reached out to the geotechs on the Structural Engineering Code Review Committee, and they have other geotechs that they reached out to nationally on this topic. And for buildings, they've told us that for frost line depths, they are not doing any calculations or specific analyses or testing to get this or pulling any data to get local frost depths. They call the building department or they look at the res code tables. It's typically what we've heard, primarily is what's being done. I think on the other side, like transportation designs and those sorts of things, are doing something a little different. There's some different equations that can be done. They're a little more complex for roadway structures, but it's different for the buildings. So there were discussions about a request from them to bring this in, so Clackamas County and the geotechs to bring in over from the residential code the frost line depths into the commercial code. So that's what you're seeing here. And then the only difference here in the table is Clackamas County, which has the notes B and C to align with what they're currently enforcing for commercial, which I just described.
I have a question.
Oh,
The-
yeah, go ahead.
The Clackamas is called 12 inches below 2,500 and above 4,024. What happened between 25 and 4?
Yeah, they're 18. So the default's 18. If you look at the table, scroll up to Clackamas, you'll see that they're at 18. That's your standard. And then below 2,500, they're 12, and then above 4,000, they're 24. So it's 18 in the middle. Just quick background on this. The basis for this came out in the the original Oregon codes back, the original 74 building codes, statewide codes. It appears we did some research, and it appears it all came from NOAA, the old NOAA maps. And they have these isoline maps across the country, and it ranges from like 6-inch frost depth to maybe 18 across the whole state, going west to east. So our values appear to be conservative compared to that, but it's old, outdated information. And they also mentioned that their maps, or their real generic maps, didn't account for elevations or how long the snow was on the ground in the winters and different things. And the soil property is a big one too. Clays, much different than something that's well draining for frost depth. But anyway, we don't have concrete good data to share with you related to this. This is just a consideration for you, the committee, to bring over from the residential to the commercial the same frost line depths. Because we've heard that there is no. Didn't we add a note? Did we add a note, Laura, above? If you scroll up to the charging, according to the table, is there anything else in the table? I thought we were going to add a note, Tony, that said, or where otherwise approved by the building official. I don't know if that got added to the table. Can we scroll down to the table again? Is there another note or anything? Oh yeah, see the note A? That applies to the entire table, unless otherwise approved by the building official based on supporting data or test reports. So there's an out there. The geotech involved recommends going deeper or shallower. Any thoughts from the committee on this one? We asked Clackamas County to join today. They couldn't make it, but I did ask if they have any data or basis other than, and they don't, for those deeper frost depths, except that if you look at the map, Clackamas County ties into Hood River and Multnomah. So you've got Multnomah at 18, and then Clackamas or Hood River at 24. And you got Clackamas with Government Camp, and it's clear down to 12 with the res code. So just, from a practical, rational look at this, it's not off base. Any thoughts, concerns, recommendations from the committee on this one?
One thing to add, Jeremy, is that we do plan, depending on the committee's action, if this is approved on the OSSC, then we're going to be looking at then making the same companion change in the ORSC so that we have consistent values for Clackamas County, the only change here.
And that will show up in the Design Hub tool. Just so you guys know, I get tons of rave feedback for that Design Hub tool. So, but I know that they were concerned about that depth with it. I'm in supportive of what it's best for Clackamas County. They know what's best for their jurisdiction.
Thanks. Yes, it will be all updated. All of these values will be in the design criteria hub. So both residential and commercial. Well, commercial, I'm not sure. We haven't talked about that yet, Tony, but probably the commercial as well. Would make sense too. So Tony, do we want to do a roll call on this one?
I would just say, is anyone opposed to this? Do we have any concerns with adding this to chapter 18?
Nope.
Hearing none, I would say that it's approved. And
Great, thanks.
on to the next one.
Thank you. 18-9 on the matrix is section 1809-14. This is for shallow foundation systems, grade beams at shallow foundations. There was a national proposal S165-22 by the geotech community. It adds grade beam provisions to shallow foundations, which align with ACI 31819 and ASC 722. It just provides an alternative and options for the designer. No fiscal impact. Any concerns with the committee on this one?
Nope.
Hearing none, that one's approved. No fiscal. 18-10 similarly for deep foundations, same updates, same proposal from the proponents. So it's section 18-10-312. Alignment with ACI 31819 and 722. No fiscal. Any concerns with this one? Hearing none, that one's approved. 18-11. I'm handing it over to you, Eric.
Okie dokie. Thank you for that. My thing is working. There it is. What did we do here? We updated, keep going down. There was this section. Keep going.
This
We
one
made
is just
similar updates to
18-11 is just the public retaining the Oregon Amendment for public buildings in 1811.
yeah, no change all the way through here. This is the current radon thing. There's two sections. There's basically, yeah, the public building section, and then there's the R section. And so we need to go down to the R section. Keep scrolling. Sorry, I don't remember the exact section, but there we go. And hold on. Right there. Back up a little bit higher. Yeah. So what we did here is the language there, 1812-2414 is primarily the change. We had to tweak a couple other sections just to make it work. But so the soil gas collector language was language some of you may recall that we added to the ORSC as well. And this was just to align with current EPA standards, which is what our statute says for radon, that we need to align, in so much as possible or something like that with EPA standards. So the problem was that our old standards used to just require a vent stack up through the roof and a T under the plastic basically, and that was it. And then we required a an electrical connection in an attic space or an accessible space, so a fan can be added later if a passive system wasn't adequate. Well, what we discovered was that caused some downstream problems later because you can't just effectively hook a fan to a stack pipe with a T and have it effectively work. And so that's the whole point of these three sections: soil gas, so a pipe, soil gas collector, a geotextile, and a gravel. So basically, it just gives you three options. So from that T that was previously required, you put in a couple of sections of perf pipe, or you do a geotextile mat in the area, or you can just do gravel. So that in the future, if a fan needs to be used, then it will be effective. So this just matches the residential code language.
So this doesn't remove the requirement for the electrical connection in the
No.
attic.
No, nope, not at all. So your starting point is the same. You can start with passive, but just have it ready in case passive doesn't work or isn't effective. So yeah, pretty much the same system is in the res code. Anyone against that, or any thoughts why we should not go here? Nope.
I think the changes are appropriate. Align them up and meet current requirements.
We will also make some tweaks to the illustrations. Right now, the illustrations do show a chunk of perf pipe coming out of the T, but it's labeled as optional because that's what the code used to say. So, you already make those changes?
Yeah, Laura already fixed them.
Okay, so they used to say, used to say optional. Now it just shows soil gas collector. It's still showing one option in the res code. It says perforated pipe option shown. So we may want to talk about doing that so they match up with the res code. But the pictures didn't change because we showed the perf pipe as an option previously. All good? And Pierre there, I'd have to look back, and I was going through this morning and didn't, sorry, but there was a number on this for cost increase for the res code. So it is a cost increase. I think it was $200 or $300. If I recall correctly, but you can look back and get back in the res code if you need to.
All right, thanks, Eric. We can verify the actual number later. I'll write cost increase for now and put around 300. We can verify that later.
Okay. So I'll take it back to Jeremy then.
Thanks, Eric. Matrix item 19-1, section 190121. There was a model code proposal, national proposal S174-22, adding a new provision to allow limited use of glass fiber reinforced polymer reinforcement, GFRP, limited to seismic design category A and where fire resistant ratings are not required. References a new ACI standard. I forgot to flag this one for you, Tony. This is one where we might want to consider striking, and the committee can weigh in on this too, but we don't have SDCA, so it just wouldn't be applicable. And this is one where it's just very, very limited use at this point. So I just worry it could create a problem. It's in the code, but it's up to the committee.
I would say we'd strike it just based on just general principle of hierarchy.
Okay.
non-application.
Any concerns with striking from the committee? Hearing none. Next one. Matrix item 19-2, 1902. Terminology coordination between ACI 318-19 and ASC 722. No substantive changes here. Just again, aligning those two standards and no fiscal impact. Any concerns with this from the committee? Hearing none. That was approved. No fiscal. 19-3 is modifications to ACI 318. 1905.1 through 1905.7. So if you see all this purple throughout this, it's really, it looks like a lot, but there's no substantive changes at all from current code. It's just a reformatting. And instead of specifically modifying ACI 318-19 now, the provisions are supplemental to ACI 318-19, which is supposed to be more user-friendly for the designer or the code user. No fiscal here. Any concerns with this item from the committee? Hearing none, that one's approved to align with model code. 19-4, section 1907, slabs on ground, national proposal S173-22, added provisions to clarify slab on ground requirements versus for structural versus non-structural scenarios and for alignment with the provisions in ACI 318-19. No fiscal associated with this, noted at the national level. Any concerns with this alignment, model code inclusion and alignment?
No.
Hearing none, that one's approved. That's it for 19. That was pretty short and sweet. So we are on we went over 20. There was nothing really to share, and there's no matrix item, I think, on the aluminum. So it's just a so we're down to 21. Chapter 21 masonry. Matrix item 21-1, section 2101.2, Oregon amendment. These are just existing arguments to clarify that the design loads need to be determined in accordance with chapter 16 of the code, not with the reference standard. So those reference, I think it was the TMS 404 that has some outdated design criteria. So we point back to our code for the design criteria. So no issues with retaining existing Oregon amendment there. And then right down below 21-2 on the matrix, 2101.3 special inspection just clarifies that it's got to be done in accordance with chapter 17. So any concerns of the committee on those two items? Retaining existing amendments? Hearing none, those are retained. 21-3 on the matrix, it's section 2103.2.4. That purple language, we had an Oregon amendment in the 2022 OSSC in this section. It became obsolete with this new language that requires conformance with section 13.3 of TMS 402, which has been updated. We confirmed this with the Masonry Institute, who proposed the original OSSC proposal a while back, that it is now obsolete. So this just aligns the mortar provisions for adhered masonry veneer with the updates in TMS 402 and no fiscal impact on this. Any concerns with this? Hearing none, that one's approved. 21-4 on the matrix is section 2104.1.3, longstanding amendment of TMS 602, article 3.2 F, cleanouts. It adds an exception to increase the 5.33 grout lift height threshold for cleanouts for special construction procedures are met. Retaining this existing amendment, no changes. Any concerns with this one? Hearing none, that one's retained. There's no Oregon amendment. 21-5 is section 210721, existing Oregon amendment. Regarding lap splices, longstanding amendment clarifying an upper threshold of 72 bar diameters for the required lap splice lengths. Any concerns with retaining this Oregon amendment? Hearing none. Next item, 21-6, section 2109, empirical design of Adobe masonry. Be aware that TMS 402, the new 2022 version or reference standard for masonry design, no longer includes an Appendix A for empirical design of Adobe masonry. But our code, or the 24 IBC and 2025 OSSC will, if you approve this change, will still allow use of the 2016 edition of TMS 402 Appendix A for those designs. So no fiscal. It's just directly putting the addition right in the code because it's not in chapter 35. Any concerns with this from the committee? Hearing none, that was approved. 21-7. This is just a FYI really on the matrix. It's section 2109-2482. It aligns with the energy code, strikes out our code. OSSC typically strikes out all non-applicable climate zones. So we just have 4C and 5B in Oregon, so those are struck. Any concerns with that? Hearing none, that Oregon amendment is retained. So we're done with chapter 21 masonry. Chapter 22 steel, 22-1 on the matrix. National proposal here right up front. This is, you're going to see a lot of purple again here on this one, but it's no substantive changes here on this line item. It was proposal 187-22 by the steel industry. It's a coordinated proposal that adds updated reference standards and reorganizes and consolidates the chapter, the different sections in the chapter for the purpose of providing better flow for the user and clarifications of the steel provisions in the code. Is what it was intending to do. Any concerns with that line item on the matrix? Hearing none, that's approved. 22-2 on the matrix is section 2206.3. Cold form steel light frame construction, cutting and notching. This was a model code proposal to add a new uniform standards for field modifications for cold form steel framing members for consistency and alignment with other codes. So you got plumbing code, different codes that are kind of talking about this. So this just helps clarify points to meet the requirements of AISA S240 and S220. No fiscal impact here. Any concerns from the committee on this model code? Added for clarification. Hearing none, that one moves forward. 22-3 is section 22072, item 3, and 2207.4, item 4. I think on the matrix, this says steel storage racks. Probably my mistake there. It needs to be steel joists and joist girders on the matrix item for that one, Laura. And the IBC proposal there, we need to change from S194-22 to S189-22 just to make sure the matrix is updated. So this one. Let's see here. So 22072 item 3. Yes, yeah, where it says deflection criteria in purple, it used to say live and total load deflection criteria. Those reference standards don't have a total load deflection criteria. It's just a live load deflection criteria. So it's creating some confusion. So just pointing that out. Is a cleanup clarification, no fiscal. Any concerns from the committee on that one? Or no, sorry. No, you don't need to change that. Sorry. I was just explaining what our 2022 OSSC currently says, live and total load deflection criteria. So this change is just changing it to deflection criteria, which is what the model code did. Thanks. So no concerns with the committee on this one, no fiscal, that one moves forward. 22-4 is item section 2208.1. Steel decks. This was a model code change, S194-22. It replaces, if you look at the 2022 OSSC, there's some outdated there's some different reference standards here for steel decks, and it's different for roof deck and floor deck and concrete deck. And now they're all in one spot in a new standard. It's the Steel Deck Institute's new consolidated consensus reference standard for all steel decks. It's titled SDI, ANSI SDI SD. So no fiscal here. Any concerns from the committee on this one? Hearing none, that one moves forward. Item 22-4B. Oh, sorry. Laura, this is one where it's an existing Oregon amendment. I don't know if we need to cover it. I didn't see it on the matrix. I must have missed that one. It's section 2209.3, that edit we make there. Just wanted to point out that's existing Oregon amendment. That was made last code cycle based on some new language that came in regarding certification requirements. The model code required a certificate of compliance to be submitted to the owner or the owner's authorized agent, but it never said it had to go to the building department. So we basically said it's hard to enforce. Let's just point right back to the special inspections. So this is just retaining that edit we made last code cycle based on committee recommendation. Any concerns with retaining that existing item 2209.3? Hearing none, that was retained. Item 22-5 on the matrix is section 2210. Metal building system. So this is the new section I was talking about when we were in the special inspections. And again, thanks to Ellie for providing that info on the metal building systems that will be going back to eventually for that one, for the special inspections. So on this one, it was proposal S197-22, new clarifying provisions and definition for metal building systems, aka pre-engineered metal buildings, which are uniquely different from other forms of steel construction. I don't know if the committee wants to look at the definition again. We pulled that up last time. No fiscal here for these provisions. You can see that it's just pointing to the steel standards for everything. So, or the joists and different things. It's just pointing to the different sections of the code. I won't see issues here with cost or anything. It'd be more of still that special inspection is the question from the committee on this specific item. Any thoughts on this item? New section 2210 metal building systems that provide clarifying provisions and definition. Hearing none, no fiscal, that stays, moves forward. 22-6 on the matrix is section 2211, industrial boltless steel shelving. So this is material handling institute pushed through some proposals that you're going to see here throughout these next couple sections. So this first one is industrial boltless steel shelving. So instead of steel storage racks, they've got a new standard here that would capture these lighter duty kind of rack systems, storage shelving. And so that standard is MHI ANSI MH 28.2. So that's a new standard. They said that on this item, it's proposal S191-22. They mentioned a decrease in construction costs in the industry since it consolidates design, testing, and use requirements into one standard for these unique material handling industrial bolt steel shelving systems.
Jeremy, did they happen to say if that standard would be viewable for free, or is that a new standard we'll have to purchase?
Yeah, I think it's I think you do have to purchase it. I think I saw yesterday, I was looking for it. We got a hold of it about a year ago because they asked us to take a look at it and review it. But it I think it does cost $50.
Okay.
Let me double check. Any other thoughts on from the committee or discussion on this item? Yeah, it's $50 from the ANSI web store.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, most of the other steel standards are free. So just not these reference standards here. So. So no discussion on this item from the committee. So this one moves forward. Item 22-7, section 2212, industrial steel work platforms. This is proposal S. Laura, if you could change the national proposal number from S192-22 to S193-22 on this one. So there's a new, another new provision or a new reference standard, MH 28.3. Actually, it's not, I don't know if it's new, it's just updated 28.3 for industrial steel work platforms. So it meets all the OSHA requirements in that standard. The proponent on this one said that it was a potential decrease in costs. They mentioned jurisdictions across the country have interpreted that Chapter 10 means of egress criteria apply to employee-only access ways serving material handling structures and state that this change will allow less costly access devices to be used that are in compliance with OSHA regulations. Tony and I talked about this one. We are going to be digging into this a little more because we may need to add the term you see in 2213 below in the new section, stairs, ladders, and guarding for steel storage racks and industrial steel work platforms, where we added the used in material handling structures in blue there with the dash. That's actually the approved language in the 24 IBC. That's errata. So you'll see that in the errata for the 24 IBC, used in material handling structure, and that's because that's what was approved nationally. We think that needs to go in section 2212 as well for the industrial steel work platforms because of this standard is specific to material handling. But we're looking at that a little closer. Any thoughts from the committee on both of these items? 22-7 and 22-8 for these two sections and new reference standards.
This still doesn't make us responsible for doing OSHA stuff that we get questioned all the time, correct? when you keep mentioning that it meets the OSHA standards, because, you know, they always want building inspectors to do OSHA stuff and we don't want to.
Yeah, this one would say, for these systems, they have to meet this standard. So you have a cited path now to meet this standard. And oh, by the way, the people from this institute are saying that this standard that the code is now requiring is saying it meets OSHA standards.
Perfect. I just want to make sure that it's clear we're still not doing OSHA.
Right.
OSHA.
Yeah, you would not be citing anything from OSHA.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts on this one? Tony, anything to add on that one?
No, I think you got it. I think the main thing is that 22.12.1 is still only referring to those platforms used in material handling structures. And so adding that clarification, I think, is necessary so that we don't have any misapplication there.
Laura, could you do that now so we don't forget? Yeah, thanks. All right, hearing no other concerns from the committee on this one, that moves forward, no fiscal. And we're done with chapter 22, we're jumping to chapter 23.
How's the committee doing? And do we need to early break for lunch, or we keep going, try to get through 23?
I'm guessing it'll only take 10 more minutes, maybe 15.
Okay.
I'm good to power through.
Okay. Back to you,
Okay.
Jeremy.
All right, thanks. 23-1 on the matrix is section 2301.2. This is just a model code clarification for cross-laminated timber thickness. Wherever that's specified, that's deemed to be an actual dimension, not a nominal dimension. So no fiscal impact here, just a clarification. It was proposal S192. 199-22. Any concerns from the committee on moving forward with that one? Hearing none, that one's moving forward. 23-2 on the matrix is section 230314, cross-laminated timber. So there was a proposal S200-22 that changed the naming convention from structural glued cross-laminated timber just to cross-laminated timber for consistency with the industry's terminology naming convention. No fiscal impact, just pointing that out. So that one moves forward. 22-3 on the matrix is section 230321. This is an alternate fire testing, a new alternate fire testing proposal, national proposal that came through, created an alternate equivalent compliance path referencing an ASTM standard E2768 there. No fiscal impact, just an alternate that was already, I believe it was already allowed by the current rules, but it's more specific now. Any concerns with that? Hearing none. Section 2303.2.6, matrix item 23-4, design values. This one, 6. This one was a proposal S202-22. Clarified that the design values for fire retardant wood requires adjustment factors applicable to untreated wood, so that you get all those adjustment factors from NDS for your design, that the fire retardant adjustment factor is in addition to those. So I guess folks were missing that, and now this just helps clarify that requirement. No fiscal here. Any concerns from the committee on this one? Hearing none, that one's approved. 23-5 on the matrix is section 2303.263. Fire retardant treated laminated veneer lumber. There was a national proposal S203-22 that adding provisions for manufacturers to comply with new consensus reference standard ASTM D8223 for development of the design values for this specific type of fire retardant treated laminated veneer LVL lumber. So LVL, no fiscal. Any concerns from the committee on this one? Hearing none, that one's moves forward. And then item 23-6, table 230461. This is the maximum basic wind speed permitted for wood structural panel wall sheathing used to resist wind pressures. You'll see there's a S207-22 model code proposal that added that footnote D that cranks up a requirement. This would be a cost increase in the areas of the country where your specific gravity of your wood material is less than 0.42. Doug fir larch is 0.5, hem fir is 0.43. Some northern species, eastern softwood, spruce pine fir, all about 0.36. So if you're using those other species not common here, you'd have to do an adjustment factor on these nail spacings. You get cranked down. So this is an AWC. They did some calculations and found that they needed to clarify that these attachments are based on the wood species. So I don't see this affecting Oregon, to be honest with you, from a cost impact. But I don't recommend striking it. I would just retain it for model code. Any thoughts from the committee on this? Hearing no concerns, this one was retained. Likely no fiscal to Oregon, Pierre. Slight cost increase, potentially, if there was if somebody happened to use a uncommon wood species.
Thank you.
So that's it for chapter 23, Tony.
Great, thanks, Jeremy. All right, so what we have left that is noticed. We've covered all the tabled items, except for ones that we are waiting on for the September meeting. We have chapter 10 to cover and chapter 33. Chapter 33 is very quick because it's one of those chapters where there's a lot of things listed that are outside the scope of authority. So a lot of text boxes and scoping language within 33. So what would the committee like to do? Just a short lunch and then come back? We're going to finish early either way. I think, chapter 10, there's a few things in there that that will probably stimulate some discussion. So it's at the pleasure of the committee. How would you like to proceed here?
I'm game for a short lunch and then pounding out the rest of this.
Yeah, a short break would be good.
Okay. Why don't we just do 30 minutes? We'll be back right around 12, quarter after or so. 12:10, quarter after.
Sounds like a plan. 12:10.
Thank you. All right, just checking in to see maybe some thumbs up from those committee members that are back, ready to roll. Thumbs up there. Got a couple of them. There we go, 3. All right, thanks for that. So we're going to back up now into chapter 10. We covered already the 2 public proposals there. Obviously, we handled those yesterday. So we're going to start out in item 10-1, equipment rooms containing boilers. For those of you that recall this in 10.06.222, this was an amendment that was made in kind of conjunction with the boiler program and the boiler code. So that was the genesis of this. Nothing is changing. This is just an existing Oregon amendment. Any questions, comments, concerns with retaining this? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on. I'm going to switch my screen here. I'm used to having many screens, but I only have one. Next item, 10.06.3 is a model change, egress from stories or occupiable roofs. And this is just basically some adjustments here with the terminology from occupied roof to occupiable roofs. See that throughout. The addition of smoke protected assembly seating along with that existing open air assembly seating. And then could you scroll down there? Yep. And then just the addition of occupiable roof to the minimum number of exits or access to exits per story or occupiable roof. We're proposing to adopt the unamended model here. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
No, that seems good.
Great. Thanks for that, Jody. All right. That one does not, I don't think there's a fiscal associated with that. We didn't note it here on the matrix. Next, 10.06.3.4. We already handled that one yesterday. 10.10.2.13, controlled egress doors in groups I1, I2, R3, and R4 facilities providing care. This is an existing Oregon amendment throughout here, and this was part of the alignment with licensure. And I don't know, Janice, does this still look good to you if you're online? There's some changes in the model language. I don't think there's an intentional modification here, just clarification. And then we're keeping the amended inclusion of those other groups.
Yeah, on first blush, it looks fine. I'll take a deeper dive and let you know if there's anything that I'm confused by.
Okay, that'd be great. And we can always bring it back up. We still have one more meeting, and then we'll also have the board meeting, of course. So we'll take a look at that next one. You just went past it there. New model section regarding elevator lobby exit access doors. So this was all new. I don't see this one. Okay, we'll add this one to the matrix. We're just proposing to adopt the model unamended. Here, I'll give you a minute to read it. Any comments, questions, concerns on this one?
Did it say there was a fiscal associated with this? I mean, it seems like it would allow more options. We've seen it. through an appeal before, but I didn't know.
Why don't we pull it up? I'll look on mine and see if I can locate it since it's not on the matrix. And 10-10-2-14. Mm-mm. No, it looks like it's, no, these aren't, that's not it. Yeah, that's right, but that's the wrong, they're referring to it in the wrong. Hmm. Yeah, but that's not it there. Scroll down. What do they have for 214? Going 14. Nope, that's wrong. So, okay, so now we've got to search. It would be elevator, whatever the title is. If we can go back to the chapter, we'd have to just search the title because the numbering is not correct. Elevator, lobby, exit access doors. You got it? Great. Can we look at the reason statement in the fiscal?
Is there a companion section? Because this is talking about how it's an alternative to the long-standing requirement that the lobby has access to at least one exit. It seems like if they're changing that piece of the requirement, there would be other
Yeah, it occurs.
sections included.
Yeah, it includes chapter 30,
Hmm.
means of egress in 30.06.4. So if we just scroll down a little bit further, maybe go up. Maybe it's up. Yeah, right there. So you see that there in 30.06.4. And then in 10.16.2, if we see the 10.16.2 part of it, an exit access shall not pass through a room that can be locked to prevent egress. And then there's a new exception, an electrically locked exit access door providing egress from an elevator lobby shall be permitted in accordance with section 10.10.2.15. And it's just an option, right? I mean,
Yeah.
where they
Well, it
lock-
allows locks where there didn't used to be locks, basically.
Right.
And they have to meet all of these pieces, and they don't have to meet one of those other special locking arrangements.
right.
Okay. I mean, it was adopted at the national level, which in theory means it's been vetted by lots of folks. I don't see how it increases the cost of construction, honestly, because it's an option.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's how we should note it. Because it's not required.
Right.
So. Yep, I think that's a good comment. Pierre, do you get that?
Got it.
Perfect. Okay, anything else from the committee? Thanks, Jody. Anything else on that one? All right. Moves us on. That one we added, right? That was a bonus addition to the matrix. Laura will make that addition. We are now on 10.10.4. Existing organ amendment. It allows horizontal sliding or swinging gates exceeding the 4-foot maximum leaf width limitation to be permitted in fences and walls surrounding a stadium. This existing organ amendment moving forward. Any thoughts, questions, concerns? All right, you got a thumbs up there. Great, thank you. Moving on. We've got 10.11.11. Existing organ amendments here. So we've had, these are long-standing organ amendments, really for the group R3, right? We have the, instead of single riser, we align it with the residential code. When we have a change in elevation consisting of a flight of stairs with 3 or fewer risers and an entrance or egress door that does not require handrails, just as we do in the ORSC. And then same with item number 3 above there. It's all right. And then we renumber. Any concerns with retaining these existing organ amendments? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna move on. No fiscal. The next one, 10.11.12, stairway to roof. So this was one where we had some help from Jody and some other folks. We got this cleaned up quite a bit. This was a long-standing organ amendment that originally came from Portland Fire and Rescue, and we got it cleaned up. I think we've pretty much perfected it. And in its current form, the only change you see is the occupied to occupiable. Thanks, Nathan. I see the note there. Thank you. So any concerns with retaining this existing organ amendment? Great, great. Keeping that, no fiscal. The roof access is kind of considered in that. You'll remember the last iteration, we expanded that based on what's readily available on the market. So you see there was a slight cost increase there, but it really makes more sense. It's more easily attainable for folks that are putting the hatches in for the trapdoor option. Any concerns with retaining existing organ amendment? Seeing none, we're gonna move on. No fiscal on that. We skip 10-9. We covered that yesterday. I'll have some language to look at before or at our next meeting in September on 10-9. 10.15.8, window openings. So this was one that so this was one, they've reworked the language below, non-technical. I don't think they noted it as technical, just clarification. but we add the or flat surface not less than 36 inches in width below as the window fall protection kind of threshold. And this aligns with what we have in the ORSC as well. I think the issue was that, you know, folks were looking at kind of little eyebrow roofs or, you know, window casings or something as being like, no, there's a surface below, and saying that they didn't need fall protection because of that and the distance to that little eyebrow roof. So this is to clarify, nope, that you need to actually have a surface there. And then also you just have some more options. They basically have taken all the options and just reformatted them here in the new purple language. Give you a minute to read that. And then number two, I believe number two is new. So they combined a bunch of the requirements, but was that? Yeah, so it's just a clarification. Can you go down below a little further? As written. Yeah. Oh, no substantive changes to the technical requirements. So it looks like they just reorganized them. Any concerns with that? The reorg, just adopting the model code here? Seeing none, we're gonna adopt that. No fiscal on that, Pierre. That moves us to, could we add that part to the to 1010 in the matrix as well? Thank you. 10-11. This was the group H5 increase, and this the national proposal was E8621. And this was something, if you recall, that we worked through with Kenton and Eric Sandoval in the 22 OSSC process. And so this basically just removes our existing Oregon amendment, which aligns then with the new model code. Any concerns with that?
Hey, Tony, it's Pierre.
Yeah.
Can you just clarify 1010? You said we're adopting model code, no fiscal. Did I get that right?
We're maintaining existing Oregon amendment and then
Okay.
adopting the new model. No.
Gotcha. I wanted to make sure I wrote that down correct. Thank you.
Yep, you got it. All right, and then it looks like thumbs up on 10-11. Again, no fiscal on this. It's just the code caught up with Oregon code. And then 10-12, 1031.7. The next two are a series of additional, these two here we added these the last go around as Oregon amendments to basically just for alignment with what we have on the ORSC side. So if you happen to have, you know, a mixed use group R3 and a B, for example, an attached group R3, that you'd be still looking at the same type of protections when you consider the EEROs. So that is item 1012 and 1013. Any concerns with retaining those? Okay, seeing none, those are approved, and that makes it all the way through chapter 10. I have some homework prior to the next meeting. I'll come up with some proposed language on incorporating the Eurocode pictogram along with our exit. And then we move to chapter 33.
There was one item on chapter 10 and 15 on the guards at the roof. And this little section, those two pieces that got added, Adelie, do you remember they have another proposal to maybe change something, but I think we like this one better, right? I feel like we talked about it, the OBOA code change stuff. But anyway, I just wanted to bring this to the attention of the group and maybe put it in the matrix just for the training portion, because it is addressing an area that was not very specific previously.
It was brought up, Jody, you're correct. I just don't remember the exact specific point, but it was noted as a difference.
I think there was a proposal for the 2027 that instead of approved barrier, it wanted to make it more specific, like it needed to meet guardrail requirements or something like that.
Oh, that's right. Because I think I even remember some other discussion about flower pots as well.
Yeah.
Just,
Yep.
making sure that those were true barriers when they were on a roof.
So I don't know if we just want to adopt regular model code, which is what they've got right here, that's fine with me. It is a little vague. Personally, I find that fine because I think if your occupied roof is 15 feet from the edge and you've got, a 2-foot tall planter to define the edge of the roof, nobody's accidentally going to fall. There are people who will purposefully go past that and put themselves in danger or their kids or whatever. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't want to speak for everybody on that.
Yeah, I think you're right, Jody. I mean, I think your comments are right on, and it provides flexibility. It's not like you couldn't then say, well, the other approved barrier needs to be a guard. I mean,
Right.
Discretionary authority there.
Yeah. Okay, that was all. I just wanted to make sure this kind of came to the attention of everybody, just in case we wanted to mess with it. But looking at it, looks good.
Great. Laura, can we add that one? Thank you. Okay. So that brings us through chapter 10. Then we're going to move it on to 33. 33 is pretty short, but we just want to show you the pieces. I think last time we really did kind of hone it in a bit during the 22 OSSC. So we have under the scope of 33 and safeguards during construction, there's a lot of authority for local municipalities regarding safeguards during construction, and many of them have very specific and detailed, robust local programs for safeguards during construction. So we're going to just kind of roll through this. You see the carve out here, just pointing again to the fire protection. So for example, in Portland, I think it's through PFNR. They have a very robust kind of fire protection package for during construction. We'll keep on rolling. We also have demolition here. So as you know, under 455-020, it's construction, reconstruction, alteration, and repair. And we don't have demolition authority, but most municipalities do have an ordinance regarding demolition. So that's why we have a text box and a carve out there. Under site work, we do retain some of it. I think all of it, actually. Yep. I think we retain all of that, assuming it's on the site. Yep. Same with, so for sanitary, We reserve it for protection of pedestrians. Typically, that's going off the site. That's going to be usually through Public Works. It's not under the authority that we have. Same with protection of adjacent property. Again, under our authority, we only have the authority for the site that is under active permit. Temporary use of streets, alleys, and public property. Obviously, we don't have any authority for that because it's off the site. But again, most municipalities have very clear authority for these things. And then fire extinguishers, that was one that was determined in consultation with our AAG when we took it out of 906 in chapter 9. This was the same type of thing, fire safety during construction. But definitely work with your local fire service. They probably already have some type of requirement locally. Means of egress, we do adopt some of that. We strike demolition. And we have the model requirements there. And then for standpipes, we do note that the same type of text box we saw in chapter 9, consistent with the purpose and scope of the application authorized in 020, only the installation and construction standards for standpipe hose connections are adopted. Standpipe hose connection locations shall be determined by the fire official, which is helpful to kind of bifurcate that, and then that also allows them to have them placed where they need them. So we have automatic sprinkler system. This one we've had for a long time. We align with the model there. Water supply for fire protection. Again, that's outside the scope of our authority, but municipalities do have clear authority for this, typically under their fire service. And fire watch during construction. All ties into that kind of fire safety during construction. Again, most municipalities have this authority independently. So probably a pretty boring chapter, but we've made it all the way through. Any comments, questions, concerns with 33? All right. Thanks for the thumbs up there. So that brings us to the end. We're getting out of school early today. Who's excited for that?
Hey, Tony.
So what do we have left, Laura?
Nope. Tony, Eric?
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
Sorry. While we're here, just if you want to revisit those issues on 10 real quick. I was looking for the thing I think Jody was talking about on the guards, and they all they did was struck the word approved in the whatever the second to the last one. I don't have it open right now. I have the other one, but that was what they did there, where it says approved guards. I think there's 9 items and it's item 8. I don't know if Laura can pull it back up or not, but
oh, instead of approved barrier.
Not barrier, guard, the one before that. I don't have it open right now because I'm okay. Hold on, 229. Oh, lose my place. Okay, in number 9, new number 9, they struck approved for the 27. That was the change.
Oh.
And let me see if it says why.
I think that makes sense actually.
Requirements like minimum height, blah, 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 blah. Introduces a term approved guard. Approved is a defined term. By using this term, the building official is now allowed to increase or decrease the specific requirements for a guard. Oh, I see what they're saying. So taking the approved away I think that's what Jody was getting at, is basically would force you back to guard requirements and take the flexibility away, so it has to meet guard requirements.
I think because this section says where the occupiable roof is less than 30 inches vertically to the adjacent unoccupied, I think I would like the flexibility to have and then it's okay, so it's out at the edge of the roof.
Mm-hmm. And I think the concern, what they said, what the concern was, is by adding approved to guards, and it changes. It's a new term, so it basically creates a do whatever you want kind of guard, because it's as approved by the building official guard, not guards in accordance with 1015.
So we could have an option in number 9 where we had our occupiable roof and the actual guard that met height and strength and all that requirements is at the perimeter of the roof. Or we could have number 10 where we had an approved barrier.
Which could be a reduced guard for.
Right, yeah. No, I think that's probably good to bring ahead, just removing approved in number 9 and leaving it in number 10.
Great. Thanks for jumping on that, Eric. Any other thoughts from the committee on that?
I just think that, again, I agree completely. And I really like how 9 is guards and 10 is the approved barrier. So it gives really good flexibility between the two.
Yeah, Ruby.
Do we have to refer in this section here with regard to section 1807.2.5? In the foundation, we have the guard too there.
Oh, right. Good point. Ruby brought up that we were going to add a pointer in this guard section to somewhere within here to the retaining wall.
1807.2.5.
Yeah, on chapter 18, 1803, I think it was.
Yeah, it has a guard there.
Yeah. That's what we wanted to add, was a pointer somewhere. I would think up in general. I think we would want to go general. Yep, a new sentence at the end. See section 1805.2.5.
Yeah, 1807.
1807.2.5 for guards on retaining walls.
Yeah.
Where guards are provided on retaining walls. Does that work for the committee?
I think so, because it doesn't say that the guards are required on retaining wall. It just directs us there.
Yeah.
We tend to get a lot of non-permitted retaining walls, you know, silage pits, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, good one, Ruby.
So should it be, see section 1907 where guards are provided? You should say where guards are required, because doesn't 1807 talk about when they're required and when they're not, due to there being access to the public and a public walk surface on them?
How about where guards are required to be provided on retaining walls?
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, Tony?
Yep.
Okay, one more in 10. So the that graphic symbol one in 13.
Yeah, the pictogram.
So they did approve that for the 27.
Oh.
And I don't know if can I share my screen?
In lieu, right? Not in lieu.
No, it's not in lieu. They broke it out into textual signs. So if you do a text sign, it has exit on it, or you can do this other one. But can I share my screen now? Let's see.
Yes.
Is that shared?
No.
I don't even know. Why is it not shared? Screen one. I want to. Oh, I got to hit the share button. Okay. All right. Now is it shared?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. All right. See what they did? Basically, all they did is so they made 10.13.6.1 into a textual and changed it to exit text. So, and then they added this one. So basically, like do one or the other. But if you do a text sign with text on it, you got to do this, or you can do this.
So it's an either or.
That's what they did for the 27. I just happened to scroll by it when I was looking for the last one. So
I actually like how they put textual exit sign instead of the international exit sign. I actually like that language better than what was proposed.
Well, what does the committee want to see? Do we want to align with where the code is headed and just kind of take this and
There's a little bit more here.
What was the vote? Was it unanimous at the committee level?
And this one says you can do, stand by, let's get there. There's the fire code.
that one seemed to combine them?
Fixes violation, what? Oh. Decrease, where is it? I don't even know. Did I scroll by a vote? Nobody saw it there and I didn't see it. I mean, it sounds like it might not even have been a vote if they were fixing a violation that they said based because they weren't international, they didn't meet international requirements, so.
Interesting.
Fixes violation code policy. Because I don't see a vote as I go down through here. Decrease cost impact. Oh. No.
Well, why don't we do a little bit more research and we'll bring it to the September meeting?
Okay.
What's that?
That was it. Did you say? Yeah, that was it for me, Tony. Sorry.
Great, thanks, Eric. So we are rescheduling, just so now that we have all the committee members there, we are rescheduling the meeting that was originally scheduled for next week on the 3rd. We are scheduling it for the 17th, September 17th. And that we anticipate that'll be the final committee meeting. We are going to be covering Chapter 31, Chapter 34, Chapter 2, and a couple technical provisions from Chapter 1. The appendices, we'll fly through those. And then we have a couple of SAMs just to cover, just to show you what we plan to do with them. I think most of them are going away because they catch up with ASCE 722. And then there are a couple of terms, as Jody noted yesterday, in Chapter 2 that'll be helpful to cover in Chapter 2 as well. So that'll be the plan. We'll have tabled items also. So it's probably going to be a full meeting to get all the way through all of that. But we do anticipate that being the last meeting. Any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts before we close out today's meeting?
Just thank you to everyone.
Absolutely. Thanks to everyone. Thanks for your time. Thanks for being here. We couldn't do it without you. You know, you're a volunteer army, and many, many thanks. So we will see you. Have a great Labor Day, and we will see you on the 17th.